DJ Bieneme of ESPN.com covers the Texans. Had a good article about Robert Woods yesterday. Texans wide receiver, signed a 2-year, $15 million deal in the offseason. If he can reclaim 80 to 90% of his form in L.A., that's going to be a really good signing for the Texans. Woods, Seth, believes he is, quote, most definitely a 1,000-yard receiver still. He was routinely a 1,000-yard receiver a few years ago. He was on pace for over 1,000 yards in 2021 when he tore up his knee. And so last season he was in Tennessee. And in my spirit of positivity about the Texans, I choose to believe Robert Woods. He said this, quote, I had my fewest yards and might have just as well had my second fewest attempts, talking about last year with Tennessee. I'm able to make the plays and do more with more, and I think that was the thing when I got to L.A. I saw my catches go from 50 a year to 90 to 100, and obviously I doubled my yards, doubled my stats. It's about the opportunities to make plays and help contribute to the team. That's what I'm hoping to do here in Houston, have opportunities to make big plays, be myself, and do what I'm capable of doing. And it talks about his mentality, Seth. It is a best-in-the-world mentality.
Best in the world.
That's how you got to attack things every day, Seth. We got to be the best
in the world.
Best in the world.
That's something that goes back to, according to the article that DJ Bieneme has here, back to the Rams days. Brandon Cooks is quoted in this article. I almost boycotted it because of that. I decided that just like Brandon Cooks, I didn't feel like working yesterday. So I disappeared. But then I showed back up and acted like nothing had happened. And I will lash out at anybody who accuses me of otherwise. Mm-hmm. But, they have this mentality of just being the best in the world. Whatever Rams, they're doing. Yeah. And Woods said, I wouldn't even call it dark or down days, but there were always days where you constantly talk to yourself to be self-motivated. This is a game where it's all about confidence and believing in yourself and having that energy when you're able to step out on the field knowing that you're capable and have the belief that you're a dominant player. So really, it was more so talking to myself, this was after his injury, and knowing who I am and never let that get phased. So it's I think, Sean, you and I need to start using this best in the world mentality.
Yeah, no, I thought about that. Like, we go once a week, we go into our boss's office and he tells us how we're doing as a show, like in the market, like what our ratings are. And routinely they've been pretty good since they put you and I together. But today when I go in there and find out what they are, if he says, no, that's really good, you guys were the best in the morning again and you're the best in the city, I'm going to say, yeah, but are we the best in the world?
Are we the best in the world?
Right.
And then glare at him menacingly, like almost to the point where he wants to lie to us about, yeah, sure, you guys are the best in the world.
And then if he says no, we're going to blame him for not being the best in the world.
It's true, yeah. I guess the next step in this, if you're going to be a receiver, this is what I like about Robert Woods. Like a lot of receivers would claim they're the best in the world and tell themselves that, and then whichever evidence came out that they weren't the best in the world, they would lash out angrily in that direction.
Yes. Yeah, let's not look
Quit
within.
lying on me.
Let's not look within.
With Robert Woods, there was one article, and there was one quote in here that I actually really, really liked. It shows a self-awareness, and that's a sense I've gotten out of Robert Woods. He seems very mature, maybe even beyond his years, even though he's getting up there in years. Mm-hmm. This is from a wide receiver after tearing his ACL 2 years ago, 2021, when the Rams would go on to win the World Series. But he tore his ACL, and immediately afterwards he says this about how he felt immediately afterwards, because he went down kind of clutching it or whatever. I thought I was being dramatic. A couple minutes after, all the pain went away, and I was fine. I like that there's a wide receiver saying, like, I was just being dramatic. And it turns out, no, he had a torn ACL.
Season-ending injury.
Yeah. He tried to keep playing on his torn ACL, and in his mind, he thought he was being a little bit dramatic.
I like Robert Woods, man. I like Robert Woods. It's funny, this article about Robert Woods, DJ lists out the wide receiver depth chart, and I guess I just never really thought about them in unison like that. Like, it's like, and here's all the names in the wide receiver core. I'm like, wow, it's Robert Woods and a bunch of really young dudes.
Super young.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets interesting when you try to talk about, okay, would it be worth bringing DeAndre Hopkins in? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I should say I've softened on that. It's that I just felt like if the Texans were going to try to compete for a 3-year deal or something, I didn't think that was the smart thing to do. It's looking more and more like Hopkins might not have the money out there at this time of the year that he thought there was going to be. Like the one place that might have given him $15 million on a 1-year deal already gave it to Odell Beckham Jr. Yeah. That's what it feels like. Something's going to emerge over time. But the fact that they have all these young guys and you kind of feel like, all right, well, they got the old head in the room already in Robert Woods, but you got to get Nico Collins, John Mechie, Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson. Like, those guys are all either rookies or second-year players. You know, John Mechie still really a rookie. And,
yes, sure.
You could go both sides of that. You could say, well, these guys got to get their reps. Or you could say, well, you don't want to have to rely on them immediately. And a guy like DeAndre Hopkins could lessen that demand. But, like, okay, so how do you wean the team off of DeAndre Hopkins and get those other guys more reps?
For what it's worth, John McClain on the Utopia Football podcast yesterday said the Texans have zero interest in DeAndre Hopkins.
Zero?
He says zero interest. And I said, John, is that your opinion, or are you saying that you know they have zero interest? I know they have zero interest in DeAndre Hopkins. So there you go.
Okay. Yeah. It wouldn't make, if you look at their offseason strategy, it really wouldn't make a lot of sense except from a nostalgic standpoint. And I feel like they've used up all the nostalgia that they need to for this offseason, just in hiring DeMeco Ryans. The nostalgia gods have blessed you with the DeMeco Ryans, which also happened to be the actual right football move to make too.
Right.
So, like, let's not test it, okay? We got the double whammy in a good way of they got one of the most highly sought after coaching candidates, and he also, by the way, happened to be a former player who was beloved, which is a big reason why you were able to get him. Let's not use up all the nostalgia goodwill.
Yeah, no, bringing back DeMeco as the head coach is like bringing back 2018 DeAndre Hopkins. Like peak of his powers, DeAndre Hopkins. It's funny listing out these receivers. Tank Dell gets a lot of attention. I see a lot of people, Seth, saying that they think the Texans got a steal with Xavier Hutchinson in the 6th round.
Xavier Hutchinson, and you know who we should get on is Sage Rosenfels at some point.
Oh, Iowa State guy. Yeah.
Iowa State guy. Yeah. And I heard Sage talk a lot about Brock Purdy and having run a similar system to the Kubshanistani system, that was one of the reasons that Brock Purdy was really ready for what he saw last year, as well as, Brock Purdy was also that throwback player that had multiple years of experience as a starter, as opposed to like the Anthony Richardsons of the world, which they're getting called up after being high single A, basically. I think that Xavier Hutchinson is a big body dude, where you've got these other young guys that are kind of small, and John Mechie and Tank Dell. Xavier Hutchinson is a big body dude that you can just picture in your mind's eye blocking downfield. Robert Woods is one of the league's best run blockers. That's another big hallmark of things that guys like Bobby Slowick really, really like, is big wide receivers that can block downfield. Yeah. So that actually is one of the things that makes me feel better about the running game this year already, is an awareness and understanding and a demand for your wide receivers to be blocking downfield.
Yep.